G'day, my name's Alan Gamble. Welcome to another episode of Aussie Box Office Charts for weekend 23 of 2025. Diving straight in, remaining at number 1 for its third week in a row is Lilo and Stitch with another $4.1 million, dropping just 35% for a current total of $22.5 million. Karate Kid Legends opens at number 2 with $2.9 million for a current total of just over $3 million. Unfortunately, as much as I'd love to go back and dig up the historical openings for Karate Kid, going back that far for the Australian box office is a bit of a nightmare, so we can't do that this week. In number 3, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning with another $2 million, dropping 41% for a current total of $19.6 million. In the world of John Wick, Ballerina opens to $1.8 million. I'll dig more into that a little bit later. But I did catch that movie and I enjoyed it, but it's not on par with the original John Wick from 2014 and John Wick maybe Chapter 2. And at number 5, we have Bring Her Back for Another Week, dropping 36% in its second week with another $530,000 for a current total of $1.7 million. Moving on to 6 through 10. At number 6, we have Housefull 5. Which is a big-budget Hindi-language comedy movie out of India, directed by Tarun Mansukhani. That's a really, really good opening for an international film. I believe it's the second highest international opening this year, only behind Nizar 2. At number 7, we get Final Destination Bloodlines with another $470,000. In its fourth week of release, dropping 44%, for a current total of $6.7 million. In number 8, we have another Indian film, a Tamil language film this time out of India. This one is a crime action movie directed by Mani Ratnam with $400,000. In number 9, we have The Fahikan Scheme, Wes Anderson's latest movie, bringing in another $250,000, dropping 34% in week 2 for a current total of just under $800,000. And at number 10 for its fourth week, dropping just another 21%, the exact same percentage drop as it did last week, bringing in another $200,000, is The Salt Path, with a current total of just over $2 million. So let's take a quick look at John Wick as a franchise and its openings within the Australian market. John Wick back in 2014 opened to just over $1 million. Chapter 2 opened to $1.8 million, the same as Ballerina would now. Chapter 3 opened to 4.1, and Chapter 4 in 2023 opened to $6.4 million. That franchise going up. Ballerina, unfortunately, being a spin-off, you never know how well they're going to do. And I would say it did okay. Opening to the same amount as John Wick Chapter 2 as a spin-off with a new character that's technically set between 3 and 4, I think it did okay there. But you can see there, that's where about lines. The other chart I wanted to bring up is with May closed out, a running total of the total box office as of the end of May in 2019, 2023, 2024, and 2025. 2025 has been a decent year except for March, and I'll dig into that in a second. But overall, 2025, we are ahead of both 2024 and 2023, only by a little bit, but we are still well behind what we were 2019 pre-pandemic. And broken out month by month, you can see it right here. The green is 2025, and we started really well ahead of 2023 and 2024 until March, where we took a massive dive. But in April, thanks to a Minecraft movie, and May, thanks to Lilo and Stitch, among others, we've gone back up above 2023 and 2024 in both April and May. However, we are still well behind that pink line at the top, which is 2019. While there aren't too many changes, let's take a quick update to the 2025 top 10 at the Australian box office. A Minecraft movie still holds number 1. It's going to be there for most of the year, I expect. At $56.2 million, it's the 13th highest grossing movie of all time in Australia. It's doing well. At numbers 2 and 3, Lilo and Stitch and Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning both move up a spot. Lilo and Stitch now holds number 2 at $22.5 million. Mission Impossible holds third spot with $19.6 million, dropping Paddington in Peru down to fourth spot with $17.7 million, Bridget Jones remains at 5th with $16.5 million. Captain America Brave New World at 6 with 13.8. Thunderbolts at 7 with 13.8, but slightly less. Sinners at 8 with $11.1 million. Snow White holds 9th spot with $9.1 million. Conclave sticks around in 10th spot with $8.7 million. And moving on, looking at what's coming up this week, theatrically wide, 12th of June, we have Materialists, written and directed by Celine Song, the director of Past Lives from 2023, starring Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, and Pedro Pascal. We also have How to Train Your Dragon, the latest in the live-action remake trend for movies that it's not completely needed at all. But it's written and directed by Dean DeBlois, who did the original animated one and starring a lot of the same people, so I'm really not sure why they're making this one. It's the same movie by the same people, just with actual actors as opposed to CGI. But the dragons are all CGI. Anyway, moving on. In limited release, we have Dangerous Animals, a new horror movie about a killer that feeds his victims to sharks, combining two horror genres, directed by Sean Bryn and starring Hassie Harrelton and Jai Courtney. We have Hans Zimmer and Friends, Diamonds in the Desert. Conversations and live performances from Hans Zimmer, set in the Arabian Desert, so if you're into those music concert type movies, that one might be for you. And Ellis Park, an Australian documentary about Warren Ellis's wildlife sanctuary in Sumatra, written and directed by Justin Kurzel. Across over on streaming this week, no new major releases coming out that I'm aware of, but in returning series, 12th of June, we see Season 2 of Fubar over on Netflix. On the 13th of June, we have Kings of Joburg returning for Season 3, also on Netflix. And the 14th of June, the one I'm most anticipating, is the return of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, returning for Season 3 over on Paramount+. So only 3 movies this week for the theme of periodic table, as I had a few things on and a few non-challenge movies to watch, but let's dive into what I did watch. First up was From the World of John Wick, Ballerina, directed by Len Wiseman and written by Shay Hatan, starring Anna de Armas, Angelica Huston, and Norman Reedus, and in one of his last performances, Lance Reddick. For challenge eligibility, it was produced by Thunder Road, whose logo is a neon sign, neon being on the periodic table. A solid action movie in the John Wick franchise, while not on par with the original by far, or Chapter 2, but honestly with its shorter runtime, I think there is part of me that preferred this one over 3 and 4. Even if the action sequences in 3 and 4 were better, but it was a fine and worthy watch. Next up was a rewatch of Iron Man, which I had not actually watched since 2014, directed by Jon Favreau and starring Robert Downey Jr., Jeff Bridges, and Gwyneth Paltrow. For challenge eligibility, we have Iron in the title. As solid as ever, the start of the MCU as we know it today came from a movie just being good, and Robert Downey Jr. doing a lot of the heavy lifting, really personifying the character perfectly. I think that's what sold it and uplifted the MCU that allowed it to become the juggernaut that it would become. Lastly was Superman the movie from 1978, which I'd actually never seen. It's one of those ones like Jaws where I had seen a lot of scenes and I knew the plot and I knew everything about it, but I'd never actually watched the full thing in its entirety. Jaws I fixed last year, and Superman I fixed just this week. Directed by Richard Donner and written by David Newman, starring Christopher Reeve, Margaret Kidder, and Gene Hackman. For challenge eligibility, we have The Kryptonite Element, a classic movie that is carried by Christopher Reeve and the score as well. But one thing that surprised me is we don't even get to see Christopher Reeve until like 40-45 minutes into the runtime of the movie, which was really unexpected. But apart from that, unlike Jaws, which still did surprise me, this one didn't, because I think a lot of it over time has become distilled into key scenes and key performances. But it was still great to finally get off my list. So for this week's Cinechums Challenge, we have who, what, when, where, why, which, and how. A question challenge. So there can either be a question in the movie's title, or it can contain one of those words, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit? I know what you did last summer, when evil lurks, Doctor Strangelove and how to stop loving the bomb, Dude, Where's My Car? Guess Who? How to be single? How to Train Your Dragon? We've got lots there, but why don't we take a look at my shortlist, which is very short this week, containing just 7 movies so far, with Am I Okay?, which is a question, How It Ends, Quo Vadis Ada, I Know Who Killed Me, When We Were Kings, Nowhere Special, and Show Me Love, which has How in the title, but it's a bit of a loose one. But if you've got any ideas, feel free to drop them in the comments. And that is it for me this week. Tune in next week where we'll be crunching the numbers of things like Materialists and How to Train Your Dragon. I'm very curious how that one delivers this weekend. I won't be seeing How to Train Your Dragon because I've already seen the animated one and I don't need to see the same movie directed by the same people, written by the same people, starring most of the same people, with just live action instead. I don't need to see that. I may catch Materialists, but I also may keep it low-key as I'm still recovering from surgery. But that's it for me this week. Watch my movies, and I'll see you next time. Bye!